So we're in a position now really to get the wings on. So what we can do is test them up, as I said before, make sure you get them in, make sure you haven't got any lines and various things. So just have a quick sand around the front, make sure it's all nice and smooth, and then, as I said, you should be in a position to literally just fit them in. Got a little bit of the front, that's because these are now been dropped slightly, so we'll just take the edge off of them. Should make these fit a bit better. And actually, we're not a bad fit at all. I must admit, I've done a lot worse ones on here. So, usual thing, what we'll do, we'll push them in, come in, plenty of extra thin to make sure it welds in, and as I said, then we'll come along with our usual treatment of a little bit of Mr. Surfacer. So we just make sure, but as we said before, try not to, it's easier said than done, I know, get it on this front part here, because as I said, it doesn't have it. Alright, so we just put this in here. We'll glue the top, let that sort of dry off, we'll go a little bit sticky, then we'll come along, check our alignments to make sure they're all okay and we're lined up correctly. So all we're trying to do at the moment is just flood this top joint until it pulls up, and that way it won't take a lot of filler. But looking down it and everything else, it is completely straight by the naked eye, which is quite nice. Sometimes they hang up and down and everything else like that. So what we do is we'll let the other wing dry. So what we'll do, we'll just poke this down here for the moment because we don't want it going over. Now the other things we're doing as well at the same time now, we're putting the engine together. Dead simple, 2 halves, ring on. Make sure you get the right engine because obviously there is different engines. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to spray silver into here, then we can weather and go through the motions of it, painting up obviously the rings for the engine as they go in, and then that way that can be fitted. And then once those bits have all dried off and sort of coming together, we can start really getting all the lumps and the bumps and all those little bits and pieces all over the outside of this one. Okay, so here we go with the painting of this nozzle. So what we've done, we've just sprayed it white down there at the moment. Same way to do the wheel wells, we're just spraying it neat. Okay, and then without a colour change, we're just going to take a little bit of black. Same thing again, we're not going to, although we should give it a mix, we're not going to clean out your colour cut, we're just going to use the colours just to give us a bit of an effect. Now this is something you're not going to really be looking at the back end of this, but we do want it to be somewhat nice. So what we'll do, we'll just give that a thing there. Quick mix between the white, so hopefully we'll be just making a very dark grey type colour. Just in there, just like that. So all we've done is make a grey. Now make sure your air pressure's up nice and high for this. So we just blow through until it comes through, and it comes. Then all we're going to do is literally just a little bit flicky motions down in there from both directions. Okay, so then that way we end up with something going on just like this. Alright, and then what we'll do, we're going to add some brown into this. I want a nice deep brown, so we're going to use some flat, where are we, flat brown. And then that way it should give us our nice changes of colours of heat. To be honest, I haven't used this one for so long, it's a bit horrible in here, so we just blow through lots of that. Okay, so we'll just give this a bit of a mix because it's very old. Okay, so we just tip this in. As I say, when we're old, we really mean it with this one. I won't probably use this in 5 years. Okay, get some of this coming through. There we go, a bit of brown in there as well. So that way we've got some nice burny type colours. And we're just going to use flicking motions going down. So that way you've got that sort of, I don't know, burnt effect. Okay, that's those done. So what we do is we just give the fan areas just a light spraying just to kill them down and give them more of a cooked look. Okay, so then hopefully we can see we have the rear engine parts itself. Obviously we're going to do this somewhat wet. We'll go on here, there's two little tabs to line up, so they will sit on just like this. Then this will go onto here. And there we go. Tricky to see, I know, but that gives you our cooked inside of the engine. Obviously some parts have got it more than others, okay, but it does seem to be how it looks. Now the turkey feathers, or the little blades at the back which squeeze the air, generating more pressure, they're going to go on past this again. Now they're the ones that tend to be white, they're the ones that look like they're china, they're ceramic, so they'll be done slightly different. But for the intake pipe in there being cooked just like that, that's pretty well it. Okay, so with those bits attached, we've got the exhaust on there now, everything else. What we need to do is put all the sort of lumps and bumps and take care of all the seam lines and everything else, so we can get some primer on this ready for getting the paintwork done. Now the big thing is, obviously this being the Israeli version, it's heavily modified for their own uses. Because of that, it's got more lumps and bumps on it than the now normal standard F-16s tend to have. Because of that, that's why we're actually using Israelcast update set. Now some of it, you look at it and you think, why? It looks exactly the same. Why do you need an update set? Other bits are quite noticeable. To be honest, the pods on the side we've used already, these ones down here. Now they're the ones who obviously got an extra pod, you've got the lighting. They were easier to sort of play with the resin to make the lights work, but there wasn't much in it particularly. On the other hand though, we've got these here. Now these are the ones that go on the side of the nose, and when you look at them together, if we just, you can see the difference is quite a lot. The Israelcast one, obviously the white one, is a lot bigger, it's a lot thicker, and although it hasn't got the detail as in the panel lines and the little part, areas on it, it's a far bigger piece and it dwarfs completely the original part. So in hindsight, this is a good one because it's going to come along, it's going to fit on the side of the nose. Now the only drawback to them is because the way that they're actually held onto the actual part here, as you can see, it sort of lays on the top of it. You do have to get in there and scoop it out. To be honest, bit of work with the old mini drill. Take a little bit off, test fit it, take a little bit off, test fit it, and away you go. So it's pretty straightforward of how it goes on, because obviously it's going to follow the little marker that you've got on the side here, which the original one goes on. So what we're going to do, we're just going to place a blob of super glue in the middle. Okay, quite a heavy blob just like that. Okay, come along with our resin part. Okay, just check our thing of how it actually goes. Okay, and because this is not the speedy glue, just the normal one, it should give us a bit of time to position how it's going to sit and everything else, and that's it on just like that. Now the easiest way to do it is, you've got the little door, because obviously this top access opens up for the IFF, the little vanes that go on there. It's a little part, and obviously in reality these doors swing open on the side to get into the radar. But as I say, it goes right over the top, and checking the reference photos and all the little photos of it, of how it goes on, it sits basically at the top there like a big lump on there, just like that. And if you scooped it out right, say test fitting is the key, you'll get them in there exactly the same. We've got another one down here. Okay, we've got some big ones to go on the bottom, and we've got some further little lumps and bumps, these ones here, which are going to go round the back area and replace these ones to the back. So we're going to get all of those on. There's a few which don't exactly work as advertised. To start with is this dome or sort of dustbin lid one, which is supposed to go on the back here. To be honest, it's an awful fit. There's nowhere anywhere near how it should be to fit on there. So what I'm probably going to do is stick with the original kit part, because really there isn't a lot of difference between it. So there's loads of lumps and bumps to go all over this one. Check your references, work your way through your instructions as well to make sure you've got them all correct. There's a few little modifications we need to do. We need to take the side of this door, this one off just down the back here on the underside, because we've got a piece of photo etch which is going to go in there, everything else. And then once we've done all that, we'll come back and we're going to take care of all the seam lines. I've took a little bit down here in the bottom ones already because there are quite deep little grooves in there, but we'll work our way around and I'll show you about preparing the model completely for the primer and getting rid of any little marks and blemishes you might have on your plastic. Okay, so we've moved along a little bit. As you can probably see, it's all looking almost done. Okay, now a lot of these parts were just popped on just so I can, you know, have a look, see what it's going to look like. And still being a kid modeler, you like to fly around the room. Not quite to that stage, but obviously it's nice to see how it's going to look. And you can probably see it is a real chunky piece, this one. Really coming together. Tail planes, really, I was just seeing how they fit. Obviously, I don't want them to snap off their locating tabs. Would be a nightmare if they came off because we'd have to put them in metal. So we've got those, but really I was doing this just to see how the flaps, how they're going to hold in position. And it's quite nice because they actually fit in there as a loose fit, so you can position them exactly how you like and then do it. Now if we talk you through what we've done so far. Okay, as you can probably see, we last spoke, I was going on about the lumps and bumps on this one. So if we bring you in just a little bit. Starting underneath, as you can see, some of the ones that are white, I'll explain those in a minute. They're the resin replacement ones versus the new ones. There's a few for and against for those, but I'll talk about those in a moment. We'll just run through what we've done so far. Starting at the rear here, we've got this steel plate. Now this is the photo etch part that goes on just round the back here. You have to remove the other one of these on this side, okay, just next to where the tail hook goes. Replace it with a metal, then the original part goes on the top, just like that. Pretty straightforward, just bending it. Best to test bend it around something else. To be honest, I used a little bit of Mr. Surfacer pot and I bent it round there first before I put it on there. And because this one is a little bit more of a bigger curve, it sat in there quite nicely. Little drop of super glue on there and then just literally push it in and hold. Gone around it with Mr. Surfacer, as I've done the other ones we're talking about in a moment, really to get rid of any gaps. If you have got any little gaps underneath, it takes care of it and gives a far smoother line. That way if you spray it, airbrushing especially, it shows up everything and it'll show up the gaps, so it's well worth doing them. Tail planes have gone on as well, same thing as well. I had a little few of those little pinholes you get when you use with the glue. A little bit of Mr. Surfacer down there takes care of that, and then obviously we'll wipe them away as I'll show you in a moment. Coming through, we've got more air scoops down here and here, same on the other side as the one up as we go through. These two big ones at the top, careful how you place them because there is no locating pins and you just line them up. There's a panel line that runs down this side, just line it up with that and then obviously line up with the back door so the doors obviously won't touch it when they close. Okay, that takes care of that one. Same with these air scoops on this side. Now, there isn't much between the kit part and them, to be honest, okay, so it's really one of those you want to do. These two chin mounted pods, I've put them on now because I don't want any seams running down them, and when in test fitting you had a few seams. Same thing again, bit of Mr. Surfacer, run down there, takes care of any gaps. At the front here, we've got one with a little bit of photo etch as you can see, and then it's the plastic part on top. Same again on the other side. Moving around to the top half, same thing again. Now these nose ones, as we spoke about before, they really do make the difference. If you can go for them, go for them. Same thing again, Mr. Surfacer around the front. As you can see, we've put the nose on. Now there's one thing with the nose, I'll bring you in and show you in here. Now if the camera can keep up with me, perhaps we do it the other way, I'll bring it to you. Now up the front here, you might be able to see it just there. I've got a little bit around it. You've got a panel line around this diamond shaped thing. In every single kit, the manufacturers always put this as a panel line as if it's some type of panel. It's actually not. What it actually is, when you look at real photos, there's a cover. This is the angle of attack instruments that go in there, these little probes that hang out the side. Now there's a cover in reality that goes over them and it plugs in the two little points at the top and bottom. This shape around of it is literally a shadow of just where weathering, you know, obviously they're covered up. And the weathering causes, looks like a panel line round it. Now in some cases I like to leave them in because with a wash around it, it gives it more of the weathered look round it. Or if you want it to be clever, you can actually paint that area on the inside, which is something we're going to do. So I've left the panel lines in so I can see where it goes, but in theory those panel lines aren't there. But for the point of this being artistic license, that's what we've done, we've left them on there. I haven't put the bird shredder on yet, which is the indication friend of foe system that sits on the front here, purely because I'm going to paint them and put them on afterwards. It'll be easier to put them after a fit. The nose does fit very well onto this, even though we haven't got the two bits each side of it for lining it up as if you've got the radar. Obviously, we've got all the LEDs and the electrics in there and everything else like that. So if you're doing it like this, it's still a very nice fit and something you don't really have to worry about. Working day down the spine, we've got various lumps and bumps, as we said, have all gone on here. They all go on very, very nicely with no trouble at all and everything else like that. Wing pylons, again, these outer ones in there, remember to nick the little hole. That you'll see it on there when you go through, but you can see there's a little tiny hole. That's because you've got little clear lights for the wingtip lights that go in there that you never see, but they are there in reality. The other thing as well, we've got these little sensors. Now, they do have them on the kit itself, but what it is, this is the resin replacement ones, hence why they're white. We've got one on each side. Okay, one faces up, one faces down for the sensor. So you chop them off, replace them with the resin ones. Job done just like that. Now what we've been doing here, you might be able to see, we're talking about using Mr. Surfacer. Now it's a little technique I've spoken about in a lot of the older builds, especially about using a little bit of Mr. Surfacer. Let's put that there, for going around these areas. Now the great thing with Mr. Surfacer is it's great at taking care of little small gaps. Now this isn't going to be like using proper filler and things like that, but if you've got a situation where you've got a little bit of a line, and perhaps where you've glued the area together and then you come along and literally when you squash it you get little, looks like air bubbles looking through it, you can put Mr. Surfacer over it. Okay, now one of the things is, if you're going to come along, perhaps it might be better if I show you on the underside actually. If we just get these cables out of the way. The cables are all there and I uncovered them purely because I wanted to test it before you put it all together. As you can imagine, putting it together and finding out the lights don't work, and obviously all of our main wiring is up here in the front or in the spine, so that's hence why that's out. So we got these running down here. What we use, cellulose thinners or lacquer thinners, depending where you are in the world. Okay, that is what thins this stuff down. So if you wanted to make it more watery, or if it's thickened up over time, just add a few drops to it and mix it and it goes through. So what we actually do, we take a cotton bud, soak it in the thinners, okay, then all we do, we just come up to our part and we give it a rub, and as you'll notice, now the thing is, as soon as it gets a little bit sticky and draggy, come away, switch to the other end. Now sometimes it happens very soon, depending how much thinners you got, others takes a little bit longer. But what it does, it wipes off all the excess that you don't need, and it makes the watery stuff go back down into the panel line. Now this will dry very, very quickly. Same thing as you can go around all the other areas with it, around all those bits, it cleans off all the excess. And as I say, the more wet stuff will get caught all in those areas and you're off again. So by going around all your lumps and bumps that you've stuck on, if you have done it a little bit like this, it will just take care of it and wipe it away. Don't keep using the same one, ditch it, get another one. Okay, re-soak that one, and as I say, we just pop around all of these. And it works absolutely great. Now you might have noticed I did it on the conformal fuel tanks up at the top, and the great thing is it makes a lovely seam because the wet stuff, like here, round here on this one, goes all the way around and the capillary action flows around, so it drags a little bit of filler with it everywhere it goes. But it's great for getting rid of it, because obviously trying to get in there with a sanding stick, you're going to cause damage, bit of collateral damage back to panel lines, things like that, even with a little skinny stick. So using a little bit of thinners on there will take care of that, no problem at all. So I say, we've done that seam line now, it's already dry to handle and we've caused no damage. All we'll do afterwards, pop along with a polishing stick, okay, and we'll literally just give it a quick polish over, but even that, it really shouldn't need it. The only time you're going to have real problems is if you've come along and you've dragged the plastic, because what it will do, it will melt the plastic, like we were saying with the air intake when we used it for that. It will take out panel lines, everything else. But what you can do, let it dry totally, because it will be a little bit soft to touch, but literally grab a panel line, key cutter, okay, pop it in the panel lines, okay, and you can just drag it out just as you would the others and put the panel line back in. But it's best to wait until it's totally dried off before you go in. But as you can see there, that seam is done, it's filled and everything else, and you don't get much shrinkage with it as well. One of the problems with using all fillers, you get shrinkage. By shrinkage, what happens is it dries, looks all nice and smooth. 2 weeks later, it's continuing to dry out, and as it dries, it shrinks back, causing a dent or a trench or whatever it is in there. So obviously we've done wing through roots, these tailplanes we said before. and they're moving along. Obviously we've got them in here, but I did them around the conformal fuel tanks, and you might be able to see around here we had a small gap around the gunners and around the top, put it in there, wiped it round, did it lovely. Same with these front ones, trying to get the resin to be the right shape was a bit of a problem. Touch of this, no problem. Okay, you do need to go round afterwards and a quick sand round, but let's face it, if you're using sanding sticks and that, you would sand them out anyway, so it doesn't matter. The other things we've been doing at the same time is fuel tanks. So we've worked out roughly how this one's going to work and what we're going to have. Centerline tank, this is also going to have a hole in it for our acrylic rod to go through, which is going to take some of the weight off of this kit. This thing is going to be in scale weight at this rate, okay, because it's actually quite heavy with all the resin and the other bits on there. We've done the pylons and everything else that goes with it. The only switch I've made since we sort of last spoke, we've got here, these are the 600-gallon fuel tanks that come with the actual kit itself. Now they're quite nice, they're nicely detailed. We've got a mixture of recessed and raised panel lines. We've got riveting detail around the hatches and everything else like that. Now the thing is, I was going to, he says, to the wall, use the actual kit, these ones that we've bought. Now this is the Israelcast kit, and I hate doing this, but I feel I have to. Now the thing is, these are the vac form ones. Now working with vac form isn't my favourite pastime at the best of times, okay? When you put these together, okay, and you look at it, you can see they are slightly a different shape. The panel lines are in different areas, okay, but overall size and everything else like that, they are basically the same. But the only thing is I wasn't really happy with was the quality of the moulding on the actual kit, and this is one of those things where I'm going to say that these probably are a better, judging by Israelcast's past work, probably more accurate than the real things, but really I'm going to say that quality, okay, of the actual plastic part is better than the vac form. I'm sorry to have to say it, but it looks very crude, it's quite bumpy and everything else like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, perhaps these panel lines are in the wrong place, but for this case I'm going to stick with the resin for the actual part one, the kit part one, rather than the aftermarket, purely because the amount of time and work it's going to need to build these, we're not going to get a better detail. This will look a lot better, certainly, than these are. These have got obviously recessed and raised panel lines. These are sort of sunk down and raised. So, sorry guys, I'm not going to bother building those ones. Certainly we're using all their other stuff, and we'll be using their triple ejector racks, or twin ejector racks in this case, for carrying some laser guided bombs and things like that. So we'll do those. So what we've done, same thing as we've done really with the kit, glued together, and then we've gone round a little bit of Mr. Surfacer just to take care of any gaps. We'll sand them, polish them up and everything else like that, and we'll put in any raised panel lines that needed doing with a knife. If you use just a knife and then score it, it causes like a trench which replaces missing panel line. So if we show you on this one, if you're doing a panel line that's sunk down, use a P cutter and you scratch and make a groove. If you want to do raised, there's a little trick. Okay, so you just take it here, grab your area. So then what we'll do, if I bring you in a little bit closer, and we just angle the camera down, hoping you'll be able to see how I do this. If the camera can lock in, come on camera. There we go. So what we do, we just, as if it's a recessed panel line, but this is obviously raised, we're just going to line up with the old one, okay, and we're just going to go along with a blade, and we're going to make 2 passes, cutting it in, and then what it does, the camera can keep up, you might be able to see it there, and now it's raised, it's like a raised panel line. What it's actually done is caused a V. It's just put a small little trench in a V, and then obviously both the top sides of it make it raised, but it's a great way of putting raised panel lines back in. But you can see it works quite well on the back. There's another one we've got to do on the front here. We won't see this one because it's going to be up in the aircraft, but for the purposes of showing, we'll just put it in. One little line, but you can probably hear it when you go over it. It causes a nice little raised panel line just like that, and it pops it back in. We'll pop one in the front and everything else. But there we go, very easy to do, quite straightforward. So recessed, it's a P cutter or dragging a groove. Raised panel line, just use a blade. Okay, so we're just putting the last bits on these fuel tanks. So we just put the little winglets on. We'll do this down there. Now these are the large 600-gallon tanks, which obviously would have fitted onto this one. It's all too often you look at models and you see people have done a great job on the aircraft, but it's almost like they've come to the weapons and things like fuel tanks especially, and they seem like an afterthought. Now obviously when we're dealing with something like a 600-gallon tank in 1/32 scale, it's like a model in its own. Okay, so you've got long seam lines, we've got, as I said, we've got the raised panel lines and recess. So it's worth taking your time and really treating your little aftermarket bits like these especially as mini models on their own. So just take a little bit of time to make sure you've got all your seam lines hidden. Go around various grades of sanding sponges and polishes and things like that until you get to a nice finish. Obviously I've got a couple of scratch marks still in the plastic on this one, but the primer is going to cover that. And also you might hear they're actually quite a textured finish on this particular one. The entire kit isn't like a Hasegawa kit where it's obviously what we call a very high pressure injection, so it's very smooth coming out of the mold and things like that. They tend to be a little bit rougher, which is great on something like this because it's going to be a flat type of aircraft anyway, so it'll just help for the overall flat finish. But it is, as I say, worth taking a little bit of time, making sure your pylons are okay and you've got no big glue marks in there. And if you want to, you can actually detail them a little bit as well. Let me put that one down. So what you can actually do is take your needle vise, and we've got these little holes on the side here, and you can open them up to be a little bit more realistic, either make them a little bit deeper or go right the way through. I might do this one and then show you. Just something as simple as opening up those little lines there, as you can see there, from the front one we've just done to the rear one. It makes it look a lot better. So a little 30-second job like opening up these really will just add to your detail and make your model look a lot more better, because it's all too easy to sort of overlook it. And sometimes if you're building the model and perhaps you build the entire aircraft first and then the weapons are sort of an afterthought, and you come along and you think, right, okay, we'll pop the weapons together and put them on, it's little things like that can sort of let you down with your overall finish and your appearance of your model.